Hello, hello. My name is Jess, and this is Patient POV. Housekeeping as always. You can follow me on Instagram at Jess underscore and underscore Elda, which is ELDA. And so there's that. And then also feel free to subscribe or leave a review. All the support is always welcomed. And so jumping into things, today I will post on my Instagram a link to a spreadsheet and not a spreadsheet, a Google form. There we go. And the Google form is where you can either anonymously or you can put your name, put in a story or a question or a good story, a bad story, a doctor situation story, chronic illness related, not chronic illness related, whatever you want. And I might read it on the intro here. That way we can mix it up compared to just having to hear from me because I'll be doing a lot of these intros. In theory, I would hopefully do a lot of these intros all at once, just because I'm trying to prep things in case I have a not so good week. I already have things ready and prepped to go, especially as I'm in my school semester again. Um, so you can find that on my Instagram. I will post it on my story today on Sunday, which should be on there until Monday. I'll try to repost it every Sunday so that you have the opportunity to do it on Sunday. But then if you ever want to just get it, you can just go to my description of my Instagram, I guess it would be called, and you can find it there as well. So that's that. Next thing on the list of things for me to chat about here is this month is Rare Disease Month. So every February is rare diseases, and it helps raise awareness for policymakers and the public to know more about rare diseases and how they impact patients' lives. And so, as somebody with a rare disease, I have erythromelalgia, which is I abbreviate down to EM because I could have even said that wrong. It's such a long name, and so as we are getting into how it affects people, it causes a lot of chronic pain in my legs, especially, and it causes inappropriate vasodilation, meaning my feet and in particular my feet, but my legs get really hot, and it also affects my hands sometimes, and then it can also cause inappropriate constriction as well. So you get a little bit of Raynaud's in there as well. And so, yeah, that's kind of an interesting point of rare disease highlight, I guess we should say. And the thing that makes something a rare disease or like how they can figure out if how they classify things as rare diseases, there is like 12,000 rare diseases out there, and it's considered a rare disease if it only affects less than 1 in 200,000 people. Um, and 1 in 15 children are born with a rare disease. So in the Canadian Institute of Health Research, they say rare is not so rare, but they're considering that there is 1,200 rare diseases that they know of right now. That's why it is considered so rare. And it affects somewhere between 1.1 and 0.2 per 100,000 per year, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, that's a little bit of a highlight of rare disease, considering it is February. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to let me know. And as always, I am so excited for you to hear from our next guest. And we had a lot of fun chatting, and I am just so excited for you to get into it that I'm just going to say, I hope you have a great week ahead, and thank you. Hello, hello. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Do you want to jump on in and tell us an introduction about yourself and kind of your health journey background?
Yeah. So my name's Kaitlyn, or a lot of people know me as Trusty My Gut on Instagram, separated by dots. And then I also have a service dog who more people would recognize me as Kaitlyn from Kaitlyn and Sebastian. And he is service.dog.sebastian on TikTok and Instagram. But it's funny how many people recognize him before they recognize me. But my journey started in 2018. I had some GI symptoms in the fall and then started the diagnosis journey in 2019 and was not diagnosed with Crohn's disease until February of 2020, right before the world shut down from COVID. And then from there, I've been diagnosed with 14 or 15 other things from 2020 to now it's 2024. So, yeah.
Hey, it's been a long journey then, eh?
It's, yeah, it's been something.
Yeah.
It's been
Now,
a long
out
time.
of yeah, yeah, no, it sounds like it. Now out of all the you say like 14, 15 diagnoses, is there one in particular that impacts your life the most, or is they all pretty equal?
Um, if you had asked me 2 years ago, I would say they were all pretty equal. And then in the last 2 years, I would say the POTS, the cyclic vomiting, and now MCAS are my kind of day to day ones that cause the most disability in my life. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that's good to know. And it's interesting how through time it can change what's affecting you the most sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, they say that like you don't get diagnosed with these things until you're like 18s, early 20s.
Mhm.
And so even though everything I have is like a lot and some of it's rare, they're like, it makes sense that it just popped up out of nowhere. But like looking back on it, I had indicators my whole life that I had like went to doctors for and nobody really pieced together. And then now that I have these diagnoses and I have more of an understanding, um, now that I'm more of an understanding, sorry, Sebastian's doing something.
Good.
Now I'm more of an understanding. I'm like, oh, okay, well, those things kind of make sense. And I wish somebody had pieced it together sooner, but it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. No, fair enough. So then jumping into that, what would be some of your challenges, if not your coping strategies for any of your most, uh, like things that affect you the most there? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I used to work out a lot. I was a college athlete. So you would most likely find me in the gym on the days that I felt healthy. And that was kind of my coping mechanism was kind of working out, pushing through it.
Hmm.
That's no longer the case. I can no longer necessarily be in the gym. So that was definitely a hard thing to kind of adjust to and figure out. I also used to love photography, but I liked wildlife photography and like going to the mountains, which again kind of got taken away. So I'm trying to get back into those things. I'm on the CHOP protocol right now for POTS, and that is kind of giving me some normalcy back in my life. But for the past couple months, I've been in therapy to actually try to figure out some new coping mechanisms with my current situation versus like the ways I used to cope because they're just so different now.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. And sorry, what was the protocol for POTS that you're on right now?
CHOP, it's the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. They made like a whole protocol for POTS patients to get
Oh,
back into working out, and it's like cardio days. You're trying to keep your heart rate within certain zones that are like healthy or something. I don't know. They have a whole packet that explains it. I kind of skimmed that part and just skipped to the workout part because I didn't want to read it all. But it goes through all these things, has exercises, and just it's a really good program to get back into working out. So I'm on week 2 of that right now. So we'll see what happens.
that's very cool. Yeah. No, I also have POTS and I've been doing for the
Mhm.
last year like an exercise rehab program at a local physio place that is in town. But I haven't heard of that, so I'll have to look into that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll send you a link after this.
Oh, good. Yeah, yeah. And I'll add it into the description so that people can also refer to it if that's okay with you.
Yeah, yeah, that would be perfect.
Wonderful. So then something I forgot to ask at the beginning is I always try to include what are some current shows or movies or podcasts or books that you're reading? Does not have to be chronic health. It's just a fun question. What are you up to?
Oh goodness. TV shows I'm watching. I'm always watching Dancing with the Stars because I'm a little behind, so I never watch it on time. Always Grey's Anatomy in The Office. Those are
Mm.
always on my TV. Book wise, I'm currently listening to what is it called? I'm glad my mom's dead. The Jeanette McCurdy book.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
He does it on like I have it on Spotify, but she actually reads her own book. And so I'm
Oh.
listening, and then I'm reading Layla by Colleen Hoover.
Mm.
Um, I think that's it, right? Oh, and then I have like my podcast. I listen to the Unplanned podcast from Matt and Abby Howard.
Yes.
The Major podcast was another podcast that I guested on a few months ago, and I listen to them pretty regularly. And there's some other ones that I just kind of fill in.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you for those. I think a lot of people in the chronic health community are always looking for recommendations of things that they can do that are low activity or like low intensity activity, should I say? And so that's why I always include that question.
I love
um,
it.
yeah. So what would your support system look like? Also, support system is your service dog, if you want to chat about that a little bit as well. But what does that all look like in your life?
So it's looked different throughout the years.
Mm,
I got sick in college and started my diagnosis journey in college. So originally it was a lot of my very close college friends, and I didn't have a big group of friends in college because I was so sick that I was traveling. I went to school in South Carolina, which is 2.5 hours away. So I was traveling back and forth for appointments because some of like the top hospitals in the country are in Atlanta. So I was traveling back and forth. So my friends were very like, these are my friends, these are the people I rely on, these people that know what's going on in my life, and I don't really need anybody outside of that. um Being out of college, my boyfriend's been a huge support, and then I actually live at home right now,
mm,
just because I was in nursing school, and then POTS and cyclic vomiting kind of had its toll, and so now I live at home. And they're great, but it is a little challenging because all of my siblings are also chronically ill. I have three younger siblings. And then I have my service dog, and he's brought some amazing people into my life because I've met them throughout the service dog community, and they've become probably my biggest support. Like I have a friend, her name's Ivy, who's also a service dog handler, and I'm literally texting her nonstop, like every day, whether it's about life, service dogs, chronic illness, literally anything weird. And it will go in and out of like, oh, this is what's happening chronic illness wise. Okay, but like, look at this dog. Oh my goodness, like, what are you doing today? And so it's really funny to watch sometimes our interactions just kind of weave their way in and out of things. But yeah, so that's kind of what my support system looks like right now.
no, that's awesome. That's really awesome. And then for your service dog, what are the main tasks that he has for you?
Yeah. So he helps, which like I could just tell you the tasks, but they don't really make sense if I don't tell you the diagnosis. um, so he helps with my POTS and cyclic vomiting. He has a cardiac alert to catch it on the spike before my heart rate drops and I faint.
Mm,
He knows deep pressure therapy, which can help prevent the blood pooling and ultimately help prevent the fainting. Um, what else do you know? He can pick up dropped items because that tends to be, I drop a lot of things. So that was one of the first tasks that he learned because I would get dizzy picking them up, and it's one of his favorite tasks. And then he knows very light guide work because the cyclic vomiting will set off the POTS, and like as I get weaker throughout the day, it's a lot harder to like kind of navigate the house and things. So he knows like find the couch, so he'll guide me from the bathroom to the couch. But like we don't really, he's not a guide dog, like that's his only thing, and it's very very light. He knows a stability task just to kind of ground me when I'm really dizzy. And we're working on medication retrievals, but I'm pretty sure that's everything.
fair
Yeah,
enough.
I'm
But
pretty
those are some pretty great tasks for him.
yeah,
Yeah. No, that's
very.
awesome. Yeah. And so I know you're saying that you're at home, you were in nursing school, got your service dog. What would a day in the life now look like for you?
Work days will look like kind of hanging out around all day, and then I'm a dog trainer, and that's
Mm,
kind of my profession right now. So I'll have two clients, and they're an hour long each. One of those is on Thursdays, and one of those is on Saturdays. And other than that, I'm just kind of like sitting around, kind of pet sitting here and there. Um, but my typical day looks like waking up, um, making breakfast. I go to the gym, and then I take my sister to school. She can't drive right now, and she's in a hybrid schedule due to her illnesses.
mm,
So I take her to school, come and train Sebastian while she's at school, and usually film some content. Go pick her up and then edit content, and then probably scroll on social media way more than I should.
No, yeah, fair enough. That's a good full day of things to do. Okay, wonderful. And then you were mentioning that your family has some chronic health as well, and you don't have to dive into this if you don't want to, but would you say that some of it is genetic? Were you able to diagnose other family members because of your diagnosis, or how did that all work?
So for my sisters, it was definitely easier to diagnose because I had already had some diagnoses. For
Mm,
me, we some of my stuff is autoimmune, not genetic, they don't think, and some of it is genetic, and we couldn't pinpoint why I had gotten so sick or why I have so many illnesses until my grandmother, who passed away this past April. Um, I was going through all of her papers and I looked at one of her medical. I just like stumbled upon a medical paper, and on it I had all these diagnoses, and I was like, um, that's all my stuff right there. What is this? And I took it into her, and I was like, Ma, what is this? Like, do you have all these things? Like, you have all these codes and it's in your chart. Like, why have you never said anything? She goes, oh, I didn't think it was important. And I was like, you were a nurse practitioner. You knew all this was going on in my life. And I've been sitting here at doctors going, I have no family history of anything. Like, I don't know what's going on with me. And if I had had that little piece of information, it probably would have shortened a lot of my journey, or like prevented some, maybe not prevented some testing, but like definitely sped up the process if I had said, oh yeah, my grandmother has XYZ, but we'll never know because I
yeah,
didn't know.
yeah, it might have helped deciding what tests to do, I suppose it could have. Yeah, yeah, fair enough.
Right.
Um, You were also mentioning before that you're seeing a new therapist for coping strategies, which is amazing. How has your mental health changed from the start of 5 years ago until now? And then, if you're comfortable with it, maybe sharing a few of those coping strategies?
Yeah. So 5 years ago, I was definitely happy-go-lucky college athlete, loving life, living away from college, pursuing my dream job. And then I had like my moments where I was like, wow, this really sucks. I'm sick. But I don't think it ever got back then. It probably seemed like my world was ending. Like I remember thinking my world was ending, and now I'm like, girl, shut up. Graduated from college with a biology degree, got into nursing school, was pursuing my dream career. Like that's what I wanted to do. Had a job lined up if I would have made it through nursing school, which I was going to go work in ortho, which was again what I wanted to do since I was little. Like I had always said, I want to work in the medical field. I want to work ortho. Like that was it. That was my plan in life. Um, and then when I originally dropped out, I had made it a quarter into the accelerated nursing program, was like, okay, I'm going to take just a quarter off, figure out my health, figure out what's going on, try to get on a treatment plan that's working, come back into school and finish it. And that never came to fruition because my health just continued to decline. And they basically are like, there's nothing we can really do for you. So we're just going to throw things at it and pray that one of them works. But you're such a rare case, and cyclic vomiting syndrome in adults is actually rare. Um, so it's a lot of just throwing things and hoping it works. So ended up not going back to nursing school, which was a very hard pill to swallow. And ultimately, that is what made me move home because I was in Tennessee living with my boyfriend at the time, um, when I was in nursing school. And then because I wasn't going to continue, didn't have that job lined up anymore, financially, it made more sense to move home. And that was hard, just because nobody wants to move back in with their parents after they graduate college. But I wouldn't say at that point my mental health was struggling, but it wasn't terrible yet. And then last summer, which I can't believe it's 2024, but summer of 23, I was on some medications that I didn't realize had a mental health side effect.
Mm,
And especially coming off of it because nobody told me to wean off of it. I just cut it cold turkey.
mm.
And so I went through a couple of weeks where like I was just bawling my eyes out. I was suicidal. I just was like, something's going to take me out. Something's bound to take me out. I'm going to take myself out. I wasn't actually going to. Um, So then I was like, okay, I think it's actually time that I need to go see a therapist. And so that was kind of the wake up call. And now looking back, now I know that it was probably menacing. So my sister was on it as well, and they told her to wean off of it. And when she was weaning off of it, she also really struggled mentally. And I was like, that makes a lot more sense as to why I've been like able to kind of cope on my own for the past 5 years. And like, still mental health was a struggle, but it wasn't what it was until I just cut that medicine cold turkey. And I was like, well, wish somebody would have told me.
Mm.
Um, but it definitely, I'm glad I'm in therapy and probably should have done it sooner. Just because it's nice to have somebody who's not like directly involved in your life. Like I see her once a week, so I kind of just catch her up on how things are going. We talk about things, and then we work on different ways to cope or like talk through different situations or how I'm feeling. And it's nice to just have an outside party and an outside perspective on things. So we do a lot of, I like to color, so we do a lot of coloring sheets, and we do a lot of like visualization things, but it's not like, when I think of visualization, I think of like closing my eyes and like picturing something. But we do more of like, one time we drew this tree and she was like, okay, we're gonna draw an abstract. She didn't tell me it was supposed to be abstract. So I took this very literally and drew like an actual tree, but it was supposed to be a tree that like represents you. And this was really hard for me. So you had to include like roots and the trunk and the leaves. I just drew a literal tree because I didn't know what we were doing. And hers was very like flowy and like colorful, and it didn't look like a real tree. And then you like write in the roots the things that you think you're good at. In the trunk, it was like the things you've been through. And in the branches, you write the things that you wish that you could be better at. And then the exercise was like to go through the roots in the trunk to get to how you can fix the branches. So it was a really cool exercise. And so we do a lot of those, and they're really fun. And I think they're good to just kind of put things in perspective of like, this is where I've been and this is where I'm going. And this is how I can use the things I've been through to get to where I'm going. And so, yeah, I
That's
don't know if that
awesome.
really answers
No, yeah, for
it.
sure it does. Thank you so much for that. No, it is always hard to, when you have to change your direction in life because of something that's out of your control. I can relate, and it's very hard to go through. And so I think that's a really cool exercise to say, how can we still achieve what you want to achieve just in a different way, in the way that you're able to?
Yeah. And we do a lot of like accepting, not necessarily like being happy about the changes in life, because like honestly I would still love to pursue nursing and be an orthopedic nurse, but we work on a lot of like accepting where we're at and accepting like what we can do, just trying to figure out that new path and how to like accommodate my illnesses but not let them like rule my life and
Mm.
be the driving factor in my decisions in life. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, no, that sounds really great. Speaking of other ways to deal with things, do you have any resources or items that you use maybe on a daily basis or whenever flares happen? Some people have mentioned, like for pots, some like the type of salt you use, or if you are on salts and whatever, or like different resources or aids that you use.
Yeah, so for pots on a daily basis I use Vitassium and buoy buoy. It's like these little drops that you put in your water.
Yep,
um
yep.
they have like a discount for people with POTS, which is really cool.
Mm,
And then I use a migraine cap on cyclic vomiting days and an ice roller.
mm,
And then we just got this really cool thing off Amazon that like, it has compression and heat, and it like massages your eyes and forehead, which we bought it on sale. Not, we were like, maybe it'll work, whatever, we'll buy one, see if we like it. And now my sister and I were literally fighting over it, so we haven't ordered another one. But it's so relaxing and so nice. And then we also have, which we had these from back when we were like athletes, we had the compression legs and compression arms because we all played soccer. And we were actually thinking about selling them, and then we started using them for pots and for just joint problems and all that. And definitely worth the investment. I'm glad she's taking them to college with her next year. But yeah, those are my, and then Sebastian, of course. But those are kind of my, yeah, my things that I use right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wonderful. And then the last question I have for you here is what is the driving force you had to get into the advocacy of it? You're using social media platforms, both on your personal account and then Sebastian's account. What was the driving force for that?
Yeah, so I actually have 3 Instagrams. I have
Oh,
my actual personal account that has nothing health really on it, no service, well, okay, it has some pictures of Sebastian, but, like, no advocacy on it. It's where all my high school, college, all my friends are. Originally, when I got sick, I was looking for people because it was peak pandemic. I wasn't talking to people. There wasn't You couldn't go to support groups, because COVID. And so I started following people because my treatment plan was kind of crazy because I couldn't go to the doctor. We were doing telehealth. We were trying to do all these things. So I started following people with Crohn's disease on that high school college account, and it was getting drowned out by all of my friends. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to make a separate account so that I can just have all those accounts in one place. Wasn't intending on sharing anything about my story. Um, and was just like, okay, I'm going to follow these people here, have them all in one spot so I can see their posts. I can like follow their journey, see if anything helps me. And then as I was doing that, I was like, well, all these people are helping me. Like, I feel kind of bad. I'm not just returning the favor. Like, somebody out there definitely needs to see what I'm going through. And I also run into this thing where I was realizing that everybody's only posting that like on their good health days, or they were only sharing the good appointments, or like when their health got bad, they'd be like, oh, sorry, I disappeared because I wasn't feeling great. And they weren't really sharing about the bad side of chronic illness. They were only sharing the good days. And so I was like, well, I wish there was an account out there that like shared both. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just be that account. Like it'll help probably me because I enjoy writing. So I was like, it'll help me kind of cope and share my story and have like now my little diary of my whole journey. Um, and hopefully it helps somebody out there that's looking for like the negative side of things as well. So it's been interesting sharing literally everything. Like I think I have a picture on there where I was doing a stool sample and I was literally like scooping. Yeah. Anyway, and then for Sebastian's page, when I got him again, I was looking at service dogs and everybody was sharing the highlights and like these perfect dogs, and I was like, well, I'm owner training my dog, and he's not going to be perfect, and nobody's showing that like the dogs will mess up, and so I was like, well, crap, like I want to show that too, but I didn't want to necessarily have the people who follow my health journey like get drowned out by service dog stuff.
mm,
So I made his account just to share like the process of training him. And I put it on Trusting My Gut and said, if you want to follow my service dog's journey, like head over there. I'll be sharing some about him on this page because they intertwine, of course. But like I don't want you guys to just always see training videos if you don't want to see training videos, because like I know you guys follow me for my health account. Um, and so that's kind of how his account got started. And then his account blew up on TikTok because I post alerts. I post him messing up, and here we are.
no, that's awesome. And then I did make a mistake. That wasn't my last question. One last question for you would be, do you have any words of encouragement for anybody or any advice for anybody who's either starting their health journey or in the thick of it and feeling kind of hopeless or not knowing what to do next?
Yeah, my biggest piece of advice is to get plugged into the community, but pick your friends wisely. Um, and my other piece of advice, I just had it. Where did it go? Oh, my other piece of advice would be on your good health days, do not overdo it. Just because you're having a good health day does not mean you need to use all of that energy. And if you do something that like you can't necessarily do on a bad health day and reserve some energy, you're more likely to have a second good health day. And that's probably my biggest piece of advice that I wish I would have learned way sooner.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time and chatting with me today and sharing your story.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me.